Knudsen,
What's up, Tursky?
this is Two Guys Talking Golf.
That's right, man. And today's episode brought to you by Fujikura's brand new Axiom iron shafts that contain Velo core technology, just like the very popular Tour Validator woods. They're available in 75, 105, and 125 gram weights with a variety of flexes. Wide range, going to fit a ton of golfers. 75 R2 all the way up to 125X for the fastest, strongest players. Axiom is designed for golfers seeking to maximize the performance of their irons by hitting it closer to their target more consistently and more efficiently. I just hit them this week. Maybe we'll talk about it a little more. They're super solid. They're extremely solid. They launch high. They add a little spin. They're straight. So go find your nearest dealer, fujikuragolf.com/Axiom. Go find a place to go hit them because I think you're going to be pretty impressed when you get some of these in your bag.
Knudsen, you're on fire so far. That was a 10 out of 10 had to read.
I love it, man. And your boy's running on like 4 hours of sleep, so we're doing good.
Honestly, same.
I've got the Tursky mode going. Red-eyed at home last night.
Travel light.
Yeah, that's right, baby. Red-eyed at home. Took a little nap here, and then was up busting it up.
Travel life doesn't always go so smooth, does it?
I mean, it was smooth. It was just busy. Just played golf. Was out at Fuji, did a whole thing on Wednesday, played a little golf Thursday, flew home Thursday night, landed here about 5:30, and was home about 7:15, and then took a little nap, got up, recorded Club Junkie. Now I'm recording with you, buddy. So it's been a busy day.
All right, before we get into the trip that I took out to Jack's place for the memorial,
Yep.
let's hear a little bit about the Fuji trip. They
Yeah.
obviously are sponsors of the show,
Yep.
so I'm going to take everything you say with a grain of salt. But tell us about the trip, what products you hit, how it was with the members, give us a feel for what went on out there.
Yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, we basically had 4 Golf the BRX forum members come out to Fujikura's headquarters, check out the Axiom shafts. That was the main focus, but they also got to hit some driver shafts and some other wood shafts. When you're at a headquarters, there's a lot of product around there. But it was pretty cool. They got kind of a tour of Fuji's Carlsbad headquarters where they prototype shafts. They got to watch one of their techs actually kind of like roll the graphite onto a shaft and kind of make one.
It's pretty cool seeing that process.
Yeah. And the other cool thing is to know that like what they do there for the prototypes is the exact same thing they do in their factory when they're mass producing. Everything's hand rolled. It's not like a machine, it's not done by hand for a prototype and then done by a machine for retail. They're all done by hand. There's just
How's
more
that
people
possible?
There's just more people doing them. It's a big factory, a lot of people doing them, and then they roll out all these graphite layers, so they're all hand rolled. Every Ventus Red or Axiom shaft or whatever, they're all hand rolled. So they got to see a lot of that. They got to see some of the testing, like torture testing, trying to break shafts and things like that. And then did a little iron fitting. They each got fit into some Axiom shafts. And then, they did a little driver fitting as well, for a little driver shaft as a little bonus. And then we went out to Shadow Ridge in Carlsbad yesterday and played some golf and, hit some clubs on the range. They brought out a big old staff bag full of just, irons and, whatever. Got to hit some balls out there, and it was a good time, man. A lot of these guys were really impressed. They got a little education, a little knowledge, and had some fun. So it was pretty awesome.
So you played?
I did. It was kind of a rough go. So not a rough go, but driver was brutal. The swing was just shot, and it was shot from like the range on. Like I got to the range, hit a few balls, and I was like, oh, this is rough. And then I was like, well, sometimes that happens. You get it to the course, you'll slow it down or whatever, and things will work themselves out. No, the driver swing was shot.
You had the lefts?
Oh, I was so over the top smothering it. Like the sweet spot, if I could shift it all the way to the high toe of the club, I would have hit it pretty good then. But it was rough. But so the front 9, absolutely brutal, man. I made a couple like 7s. I think I made a 7. I made an 8. I shot 46 on the front, which was not good.
Ooh.
And the greens at Shadow Ridge are tough. Like if you never played there before, the greens are kind of tough. But I putted actually decent. Like I wasn't making everything, but I got it around the hole. I wasn't three putting, and then on the back I shot 39 with a couple birdies, a couple pars, made a few
That's mental
putts.
fortitude coming back from
But
46 to break 40.
the driver was still garbage. Like there were at least three times when I had like 220 into a par four green because my drive like snap hook left hit a tree, fell, and I had like 220 to the green, and I would just like rip seven wood right up to the front of the green, chip it on, maybe make par, but walk away with a bogey, and I was just scrambling from the fairway to get it. But yeah, I shot 39 in the back, and yeah, I played some Mizuno 225s with some Axiom 105 stiffs, and they're good. They're really good, really
How
solid.
can you compare it to a steel shaft? I mean, I've always played steel shafts. I've obviously experimented here and there with graphite, but or composite. Um, how can you describe the difference between, say, like Dynamic Gold or Project X with an Axiom?
Well, so dynamic gold compared to Axiom, I think like dynamic gold, Axiom, if you're comparing, say, like S300 stiff to like a 105 stiff, which I think
Hmm.
would be a kind of direct
Yeah.
comparison, the feel, the actual graphite actually feels almost a little more stout. When you load it on the downswing, it doesn't, you don't feel as much of that bend, and then at impact, it doesn't have that like little extra kick like you feel like with S300, like you feel like that thing
Hmm.
that tip kind of like jumps forward.
Yeah.
And even with the guys, they were saying, because the first couple shots out of the course, I hit it right at the green, like just right. I was pin high, but I was just right. And they're like, yeah, it usually takes a guy who comes from steel to Axiom. The way that tip is so stable, they have to like actually release the club and make sure to hit it.
Hmm.
And he's like, you see that a lot, and then you get used to it, and it'll be fine. But it's actually a stouter feel, like it's a stiffer feel, softer, reduces more vibration. If you hit one like a groove or too low, it doesn't like rattle your hands. It takes some of that away, but it almost softens up the feel of your irons, and it's extremely stable. Like there's always that like, oh, graphite's not as it's not as accurate as
Hmm.
steel, and it's just not the case anymore. The graphite stuff is crazy, and even for guys like you swinging hard, I mean that 125X, I mean it'll handle. One of the guys out there who works at Fuji. It's like you. He's a younger guy, strong. I mean, he moves it at like the high teens, if not 120s, and he plays the 125X and has no problem. Guy's like a plus one, so he's a pretty good player, and so I mean they can handle a lot, but the feel is really good. They're really smooth. They're kind of softer, reducing vibration, and the performance is really good. They kind of fly a little higher than like an S300, but with like maybe a little more spin, and there's just great control with it. So they were good, man. I liked them. I can't wait to get a set and put them in. I don't know what iron heads I'm putting them in yet, but I can't wait to get my hands on a set.
Calling or comparing me to a quote unquote younger guy, I'll take that.
Yeah. Oh
I'm
yeah.
getting up there these days, you know.
Oh
Life
yeah.
life comes at you quick.
It
But what's the
does.
benefit of playing steel anymore?
I mean,
If the graphite composite companies are getting so far along that, they're able to be stouter than steel, still provide accuracy, like why are we all still playing steel then?
uh,
Is it just because I'm stubborn and I haven't switched?
I think there's two reasons. And one, there's actually funny. Fuji was telling a story like during the development of Axiom because it took like I think 2 years to develop them. They actually had a prototype that was so stiff and had such little torque that players weren't able to hit it. They almost weren't able to hit it straight. Like everything was like left starting line because it just had zero twist to it, and it was so stiff in certain
Uh,
spots. They're like they had to water it down to bring it back. They basically said they could make shafts that have like I mean literally zero torque. I mean just
hmm.
telephone poles, and they could do it at like 50 grams. Like they're like we can with composite you can make any weight, any flex, any profile you want. There's no limit because of all all those fibers that are available and where they can lay them and all that and how light they are. They're like 125s are actually really hard to make because the more layers of graphite or carbon you keep putting on these shafts, it actually deadens the feel. So it's really
Hmm.
difficult. Like you can't like just slapping more layers on to add weight doesn't necessarily work. you have to like design that shaft around that weight and the flex and the bend profile, because you can make the shaft dead and players won't like the feel really easily. And but really, I think the benefit is twofold. One, price. Steel shafts are typically cheaper.
Hmm.
And two, there's either people have, or I'll give you three. Price. Two, people still have the stigma that, graphite is too weak, or, I swing too fast for it or whatever. And then three, I think it's just people, like, especially tour pros, they grew up playing a shaft and they're just not going to change right away because they're just used to it. They're finding success, like a tour player or like a mini tour player. I've gotten to this point playing these steel shafts. Why not? Why am I going to change or go too different from what I've got? So I think there's still, there's still steel around. I think it'll be around for a while, but I think there's a time in the future in our lives where there won't be really too many steel options, if any, because I just don't. After seeing what you can do with graphites, I just don't know how steel is better in any real way. You get better vibration reduction if you've got like, tennis elbow or whatever. I mean, there's so many
Hmm.
things that go along with it. And if you made the price equally the same and all that, I think it would be a huge jump. But I think it's time's coming where, between Axiom, MMT, all these really good iron shafts are coming out that are graphite, and you're seeing them kind of sprinkle into tour a little bit. It's just a matter of time before more people have access to them, and we see a bigger switch over to graphite.
Yeah, I would say the last, like, I guess 5 to 8 years, it's starting to sprinkle,
Yeah.
but it hasn't been like a mass exodus into composite graphite. Probably because guys are, I mean, similar to me. Like, I've tried graphite, I've done the tour at Fuji, and I've done a bunch of testing, and I end up in steel because it's familiar.
Yep.
So to your point, like, it's just because that's what I played when I was 18. That's what I played when I was 24. It's what I play now. Kind of just is what it is with the irons. If you look, let's say it's 2023. So if you look at 2040,
Oh,
say it's like the Masters or the US Open, over under 50% of tour players using graphite.
in 17 years, I think
Yeah,
I think 95% of the field will be using graphite.
no kidding.
Oh yeah. You
Maybe
think
just like Colin Morikawa still hanging out on
yeah.
tour and he's still that type thing.
Yeah, it's like an old winner who's still playing, some old relics or
Yeah.
whatever, and he's not really playing to compete.
Scotty
'Cause
Scheffler.
yeah, exactly. Like he's still got the old, P7TWs in there with some steel
Yeah, yeah.
shafts. But no, I think by that time, especially, you'll have a younger generation that'll have grown up with really high quality graphite shafts, and I mean the technology just keeps getting better and better. So by then, I mean I think you might even be at that point, to the point where they'll like go to a pro and say like, "What do you need? What weight, what flex, what ball flight?" And they may be able to like basically build them a custom set right there that checks every box, and and then they and they're during development. I need to spin a little more, no problem. We'll do that. They
Isn't
can.
that exactly what LA Golf is doing?
I don't think they're doing that. Well, maybe for like
I mean, they
DJ and
at the
Reed.
at the impetus of it,
Yeah,
they hire DJ, partner with him.
yeah, they built
He
the machine.
basically tells them exactly what he
Yeah,
wants.
yeah,
Probably, yo, I want to match my Fuji speeder,
yep,
and then they dial that in. Same thing with Bryson.
yeah. They
He
built
went to
him.
four, he went to 14
Yeah,
graphite shafts, and that was at the height of him creating speed. And they were saying, yeah, it's rebar
yeah.
technology. Like, this thing don't move.
No, he had. I think his wedge shafts were called like the Texas Rebar or something like that. I mean, it was like
Yeah,
some crazy
literally, I
thing.
think that's what they were calling them.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so arguably one of the fastest players on tour, one of the longest hitters on tour, Bryson plays 14 graphite shafts.
Mhm.
Like that right there tells you, if you're a guy who swings at 110 and you say, I swing too fast for graphite. Well, Bryson's got you by at least like 12 to 15 miles an hour, and he's swinging graphite.
Mhm.
So your excuse is no longer valid. And like I said,
But it's Bryson though.
true,
Like,
but
if it was Rory and then Xander, like, those type guys who would be considered more like normal swingers
Yep.
because, you know, Bryson single length,
True.
swinging out of his shoes crazy on this wild diet. You could definitely look at it as just like, oh, that's a drastic move
Yeah.
for a dude that, you know, may or may not be crazy.
But also,
To the general golf
yeah.
fan, that's how they look at it. So, you know, people don't really have a guy to look to where they're like, oh, he's playing it. Now it's time to try it. I know Fowler um, have been doing a ton of experiments like Abraham Answer,
Yep.
Matt Kuchar, Brant Snedeker, but it's not like the young, fly guys that like you're looking to emulate as a 99% majority golf fan.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's probably why that it
Well,
hasn't gone more mainstream because fact of the matter is people look at tour as their influence,
oh,
you know.
100%. And even people say they don't, they do. Well, and then look at, I mean, back in the day when everybody played steel throughout the whole bag and the woods were all
Mm-hmm.
steel and all that. Eventually now, is there anybody who plays a driver with a steel shaft?
Other than
Nope.
Jimmy Walker 2 years ago, no.
Yeah. And even he's gotten, and now he went from steel, super crazy heavy, to autoflex. So he's gone
Yeah.
totally opposite
Yep.
end of the spectrum.
Yep.
So I think it's like that. You know, it's going to take a little bit of time, but eventually everybody's going to see, you know what, maybe there's an advantage here. Maybe there's something with the weight, the flex, the whatever that I can get that I can't get from steel. And I think it is just a matter of time. I think we're kind of in that same boat that we were with, you know, steel woods to graphite woods. We're kind of in that same kind of segment right now with iron shafts that it's going to start changing over. I just don't see why it won't. Like I said, the to be able to talk to those guys and be like, we can like with steel. Typically, if you want lower launching, lower spinning, the only way to do it is more metal to make it stiffer, or you make the
Mm-hmm.
diameter bigger. Well, the diameter
Mm-hmm.
can only go so big before it starts, you know, being uncomfortable in people's hands and changing the feel and all that. And like they can't make a 75-gram shaft that launches low and spins low, you know, launches low and spins low. It's just like there's not enough material. Where graphite, they can do that. And now at the tour level, nobody wants a 75-gram shaft that, you know, or probably doesn't. But it just shows you that, you know, hey, if they want this exact characteristic, they can get it from graphite, where steel you may not be able to. It just depends.
Well, I guess it happened with putter shafts.
Yeah, look at all. Yeah,
I look out on the practice greens these
all part.
days, and it's like composite, composite,
Yeah.
composite, half steel, composite. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Oh
Things have
yeah.
definitely changed in the putter world, obviously at the top end of the bag. So it's like wedges and irons are what's left. And probably for tour players, if I'm looking at it like a tour player, and for me in my own game, you know, I've spent my whole life dialing in these iron numbers.
Yeah.
You know, I've played a certain style of club. I've played a tour cavity back, you know, for 22 years, and I've based all my yardages off that, all my feels off that. So now you're going to want to change where I've made $14 million in my career because that's where you make your money
Yep.
is, you know, hitting it close and getting up and down, you know, at the end of the day, really. Um, so yeah, they're probably not trying to change up where they really make their bread or they're not ready to make that transition for some of the guys who are on the fence. But yeah, I could see I could see it all going differently over the next 10 years if it really is true that you could basically get the same exact performance from as a steel shaft with graphite, but actually advance it a little bit more to control like certain flight characteristics a little bit better.
Yeah. And I think, you know, you're going to be able to see stuff that's like, you know, kind of like dynamic, like True Temper's AMT, you know, where you had, you know, lighter weight
Mm-hmm.
4 iron went down. I think stuff like that's going to be easy to do. You know, or, you know, have a 125-gram shaft that in the pitching wedge launches super low, but in the 4 iron it launches super high to help, you know, players, you know, have a little more height or whatever, but you're not going to have to change like the feel or the weight or anything on it. It's all going to be similar, just, you know, hey, we can have a long iron that flies high, short iron that flies low, and we can make it 60 grams, we can make it 125 grams, whatever, it doesn't matter. And I think that'll come. But, you know, like you said, the guys on a tour right now, like the, you know, the JTs, the guys who have been there a while, who have made all this money, they don't really have an incentive to change yet.
Hmm.
Like they're used to it, but I think these younger, players up and coming, they're going to have more access to these things and they're going to grow up with it. So it won't be as foreign to them. I mean, they're just
Hmm.
gonna, it's gonna be one of those things when they go and get fit for their next set of irons and, there's, Axioms and MMTs and LA Golfs and all these things on the rack. And one of their fitters puts it in there and they go, wow, look at the numbers. I'm hitting this thing so well. And, I can play this shot and that shot and I can do all these things that I didn't know I could do, or I could do with my steel shafts. I could do them here, and I can hit more balls without the wear and tear on my joints and back and all that because it reduces vibration, especially on mats and stuff. Yeah, I mean those kids are, those younger kids now who are going up, you're gonna see, just more accepted. And if they grew up playing graphite, when they get to the tour level, what's the difference? I've been playing it for the past 10 years, and I've got myself to this level. Why change back? Why move back?
I'm going to ask a probably impossible to answer hypothetical here. This all has kind of just sparked my interest. Okay, so maybe like 5, 6 years ago, Callaway is like, we're AI engineering our faces.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so AI has been helping with golf club design for years now, right?
Yep.
AI has definitely taken off way more since then. Like recently, the public has access to some wild AI. How
Yep.
far away are we from AI kind of just taking over like shaft fitting and the way consumers buy golf clubs to where you just go, you hit 2 shots with each iron on some sort of tracking system, then AI basically just prints you out the perfect shafts.
Yeah.
Like, is that where this kind of all goes with AI and how like fast it's improving? Like, how do you think that's going to affect equipment manufacturing and designing? Because it already has.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we know, I mean, we know that every company now, if you're not using AI at least to check your work, maybe not, hey, AI, design me a new 2024 driver. Like, you know, there's still more human involvement than that, but maybe not for long.
Yeah. No, I mean it's I think there's something to be said. Like we like one of the guys asked the guys at Fuji about that. Like, would you be able to go into a fitting center, hit some balls, and then basically, yeah, they make a custom shaft like the Axiom AT, 120,
Hmm.
which is the
Right.
Amateurski 120 grams. It's built for this profile. Da 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 da. And he said probably not. Like that. Like not that it will never, but like that probably isn't going to happen anytime like really really soon, only because it's kind of a scale thing. And then at what price does it cost? How do you build that shaft? Because if everything's hand done, well then you got to do it by hand, and then it's like one off. They didn't say like it's impossible, because it's definitely possible. It just may be a thing that price, scale, all that, it may not work out great that way. But who knows? I mean, technology, manufacturing technology in the next 15 years or whatever, we could see machines that roll shafts better than humans or whatever, and you can do it. But right now, that's not like totally on the radar for a consumer yet. But it could happen by the time we're old geezers and playing the most forward tees and hitting woods from 130 out. It could be that way, and I think it's possible. I mean, I think if the business model was right and you had enough people who were willing to pay it, in theory could do it. You could walk in, get fit, whatever, and then they could build you a custom set of rolled shafts or whatever. It's probably not going to be easy on your wallet, but they could probably do it.
I saw I saw one of the funniest memes about artificial intelligence I've seen. It was the other day I was scrolling through and it was like AI is set to eliminate 300 million jobs by 2027. I don't
Yeah.
know the exact stat. It's not about that, but to go along with it, it was a meme of like Allen Iverson kind of looking upset, and it was like, damn, what AI had did.
Poor
Like,
AI.
damn, poor AI is catching a lot of heat. He
I
eliminated
know.
all those jobs.
I mean, just for practice, caught a lot of heat. Now this, oh, poor guy.
All right. Anyway, enough about shafts. I guess we'll probably end up talking a little bit. I'm looking at my topics now. I actually don't think we have too much shaft talk, but let's talk about Jack's place a little bit, the
Yeah.
Memorial. Round one is over as of the filming and recording of this podcast. These guys are getting absolutely chewed out there.
Oh, I haven't even looked. Like I said,
Like,
I've
is
been
this
on a
the U.S.
plane.
Open? I think it's the U.S. Open. Billy Horschel shot 84,
Four.
literally brought him to tears. Like, he was in
Crazy.
his press conference after, he was like, and shout out to him to even do like a post round press conference after a round like that. But he was saying, my confidence is just super low. I haven't been playing well, didn't play well today. I'm not going to withdraw. I'm going to go out there tomorrow and try to work something out. He ended up shooting even par this morning, I think, in his second round. Um, yeah, someone made a like 16 on a hole, just a lot of scores around that 77, 76 mark. I think
Ugh.
the average score on the day was over 74. Depending what wave you were on, I think the morning crowd got a little bit easier than the afternoon crowd. But from firsthand experience, I walked 9 holes with Steph Curry, not to name drop, but I
Oh,
did.
yeah.
He was
Well,
out
that's
there
not, yeah.
playing the pro-am, so I was obviously trying to get what's in the bag and just see how his game was. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I was walking just with the group, and I'm like, this rough reminds me a lot of Oak Hill,
Oh,
but
wow.
but longer. Like the blades weren't quite as wide as Oak Hill, like the blades of grass. It wasn't quite the same style of grass, but just as penal. And I've seen some videos going around. I didn't watch like the coverage live, but I saw Colin Morikawa. It looked like he tried to take about a 7 iron from the rough, topped, went about 3 yards.
Oh,
It's like, man, this course is no joke. I think it's over 7,600.
yeah.
We already know it's a difficult course, but they've lengthened it even more, and the rough is all the way up. And it doesn't surprise me, really, because it's Jack Nicklaus's event,
Well, yeah.
and he wants to protect his golf course, you know,
Yeah.
straight up. I don't think he's blatantly said it like that, but we know his stance on the golf ball, on modern technology. He wants to roll it back. He wants to protect golf courses, and he did it.
Yeah.
He did it with this course this week. They're not getting to 22 under,
No.
so
No.
he did what he set out to do. I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, Hideki at 7 is through 2 rounds is 72-65. Evidently today is a little more maybe gettable if you're hitting a decent, but you know I mean we talked about it when the first rollback like ball rollback stuff came through. I mean, there's ways to do it on the PGA Tour, without changing the ball. I mean, you can make the rough just absolutely nasty. You can dry out those greens. You can dry out the fairways. You could do a lot of different things. And yeah, you knew Jack wasn't going to let the winner of this thing be like 24 under. There's no way
Nope.
after, the ball thing. But I think this then kind of goes against his argument in the fact that, hey, we can make a really tough course and we don't have to change any of the equipment. And, with what they've done with like, either the rough or whatever, even an advancement in a couple of years with stuff getting either better and whatever, you know, nasty long rough that grabs the face and wants to shut it down and, balls you can barely get out and all that. Like, that's still going to be a problem even when the ball gets a little better and the wedges get a little better and the irons get a little better. Like, that stuff isn't going to change. Like the stuff that makes golf courses really, really hard, like playing Shadow Creek. Like, those greens are tough. Like, they're tough to read. They were fast. If you had a downhill putt, you had to be really careful about speed and those things. They can do that with these guys, and they can make stuff
Mhm.
really, really difficult, and it has nothing to do with the equipment they play. I mean, they could have anything in the bag, and they're still going to struggle if they hit it in the wrong places, and they don't, they're not careful with where they place that ball, whether the fairway, the green, whatever. You don't have to necessarily roll back the ball.
he's low key making everyone's point
Yeah,
that you can still protect a golf
yeah.
course. It probably takes an enormous amount of water. They obviously had to move tee boxes and stuff like that. Um, I don't know. That's not what this podcast is going to be about.
No.
I'm not going to do the golf ball roll down. It was actually, I was going to get into the new Titleist irons. That's a tease, but we're not going to just yet. Let's talk about Steph Curry.
Okay.
So I've seen him play in person a couple times, but it's just been like, on the range, maybe. I saw him on like the long drive hole out at the Reno Tahoe. I haven't seen him play like a whole 9 holes to see how he plays golf and what he's really got. We saw him playing a couple of professional web.com Corn Ferry events, right?
Yep.
Um, but seeing it in person always kind of changes things. Like, what's the ball flight look like? How does it feel? What's his presence like? How does he putt? How does he chip? Um, this dude's no joke.
Yeah.
He's a serious golf. He's fresh off the NBA season. I mean, they just got bounced out of the playoffs, what, 2 weeks ago? So his
Uh,
game can't be firing yet. Like, he's not mid golf season form. He's more mid NBA season form. But he's pretty much a stripe show. He hit some iron shots where he was playing with Spieth, Jordan Spieth. And it's like, I'm watching Spieth's ball flight, I'm watching Steph's ball flight. And there's not too much difference. Like, he hits it really crispy. His swing speed is over 120.
wow.
Talking to Johnny Wonder, who did his whole bag fitting. Um, what's his speed like? What's his ball speed like? What's he got in the tank if he pushes it? Um, he's like, yeah, 121 up
Whew.
to 124 is about where he caps out, and his ball speed is high 170s.
Yeah.
And I was saying, I was just like, really? Because even in person, I'm watching, it looks very smooth. He doesn't have a jerky transition. It almost looks a little bit casty to where
Yeah.
he hits kind of like that power fade that a lot of the guys out there hit that I'm trying to learn how to hit right now. And it just looks like he's swinging 114. You could tell he's got a lot of speed, hits it hard, hits it high, nice cut, but you forget that he's 6'3", two
Yeah.
hundred pounds or whatever he is, because he's a quote unquote small point guard in the league. You forget how tall he actually is. Like, he's taller than me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, like you say, I think with the NBA nowadays, especially, you kind of like think like, oh, everybody is 6'6" and whatever, and yeah, he is, like you said, 6'3", substantially shorter. Interesting that at 6'3" he still plays. Like I was looking at your specs, and you guys, like, you got some mad details from Johnny on these, but playing
Yeah,
him 3/4 of an inch over at 6'3" seems like a lot. And I guess I
it's
mean,
3/4 of an inch, right?
yeah, 3/4 of an inch over,
I'm at
longer.
half inch, and I have found like later in my career, especially with the putter, that longer clubs help me.
Yeah,
It allows me to be more comfortable in my posture. Um, he definitely looks super comfortable at address. So whatever the fitting was,
it's pretty
um,
pretty good.
spot on. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He stripes the ball.
No, I mean, in 3/4. I mean, it's just I've seen guys who are like similar height who play half inch to standard. So I wonder if he's just got maybe a slightly shorter arm. I wouldn't think so, being an NBA guy. I mean, he probably has pretty long arms. So yeah, interesting that just jumped out at me. I was like, wow, that's a little longer
Mhm.
than I thought it would be. But the rest of his bag, I'm kind of shocked he's not playing like a crazy prototype driver. He's just playing the Paradigm Triple Diamond. He's not playing one of the wild prototypes. And same thing with I mean, he does have the Apex TCB Raws, which are,
Mhm.
I mean, we would all love to get a set of those. They're just
Not getting
that,
them.
and his look pretty fresh because there's like no rust on them yet. They're pretty clean.
It sounded like the fitting was recent.
Yeah, yeah. And then just a pretty solid setup. I mean, you look at his bag, and you would be like, I could go play that. pretty easily. I
Yeah.
mean, there's nothing too crazy in there. He's playing the Paradigm Triple Diamond, a 9-degree head, with a Ventus Red 7X. So I mean, he's getting a little more launch, a little more
Why don't
spin
you
out of
just go
that.
through real quick all the people listening in? I'm sure at least a certain percentage of them never end up going into the Golf WRX forums or
Yeah.
golfwrx.com or at golfwrx on Instagram, which is where you can find all this lovely information. But why don't you tell the just listeners his specs?
Yeah, so he's got Paradigm Callaway's. He's a Callaway guy. He's a Callaway ambassador, so everything's Callaway. And he's got the Paradigm Triple Diamond, 9-degree head, uh, basically a neutral standard setting, so neutral lie, standard or stated loft, I think is what it stands for, with a Fujikura Ventus red. Uh, is it a TR red or a red? You have it. It's a TR red. TR red 7X. Um, and it's tipped an
Let me look
inch.
at my photos real quick.
Yeah, the photo looks
But
like a
yeah,
standard
keep it
red.
rocking.
The photo looks like a standard red, where the description says TR, but either way, little higher, kind of a mid-high launch shaft, kind of mid-low spin, really stable for a shaft that launches a little higher, and then you got the matching triple diamond 3-wood, which looks like the retail one. He doesn't have like the bonded hosel. It's same adjustable hosel. I guess his is digitally lofted to like 15.2 in the NS position. And then he's
Mhm.
got a Ventus Blue 8X, which is getting into big boy territory there.
Right, right.
And that's tipped an inch and a half. So I mean, that's pretty big boy.
He needs it for
Yeah, I
real.
mean, if he can move it up to like those 120 numbers, that's like legit stuff. I mean, that's
We're
faster than a
talking
lot of
top
tour
30
guys.
on tour type
Yeah.
speed. Yeah.
Then he plays a utility iron at 19 degrees, so the X21 Tour utility iron. It's technically it's 19, but 18 and a half degrees, with a Ventus Blue HB 10X, and that thing's pretty stout too, even for the
10.
mid-launch option. That's
10's a
100
big boy.
grams. That's 100
Yeah.
grams X.
Yeah.
And then he gets in, the Callaway TCB Raws, 4 through pitch with Project X 6.5s. And 6.5s at 3/4 of an inch, that may soften them up just a touch. But either way, those things are still, low spin, and plays a pretty standard loft setting with off a 45 pitching wedge, which is pretty standard there. And then Jaws Raw wedges in black with a little his little logo out on the toe and a little hammered finish in that on him as well.
Is that
50.
how they do that? Just with a hammer?
Yeah, it's like a ball peen hammer. I think
Okay.
was it Toronto or Toronto? They use like a
Yep.
ball peen hammer and just pound it out, so it has that kind of dimpled, hammered look.
It looks really cool.
It does, and he does a 50 10s, a 56 10s, which is bent one strong, and then a 60 08Z grind. So it's he's got a pretty good set. And then to finish it off, a little Toulon Atlanta with a Stroke Lab putter. I love the Atlanta head. I think it's just a classy head. And then Chrome Soft X, the 2022 ball. So a pretty nice setup. I mean, it's one of those setups that I'm like, if somebody just handed me that bag and said go play, I mean, and the 6.5s and an 8X tipped an inch and a half 3-wood, like those would be a little struggle. But the overall heads and everything, it's nothing too crazy. It's nothing too tour saucy. It's just like a good player playing some solid sticks.
Steph Curry kind of annoys me. Now I'm not actually hating on him. I'm just kidding. But it's he's the best 3-point shooter probably of all time,
Yep.
most likely. Um, who knows what's going to happen because he birthed a generation of, all the youth basketball players now, they just heave it from half court.
Yeah.
And they're all going to get really talented at shooting. But for now, he's the best 3-point shooter probably ever. Completely changed the game of basketball, made all sorts of money,
Yep.
has stayed out of trouble, great family life. Like, this guy's really a +2 handicap, too.
Yeah. I mean, it's got it all,
Like, come
baby.
on, Steph, come on.
Leave
Come
some for
on
the rest
now.
of us.
Yeah,
Leave a
for
little
real,
bit.
for real.
But
No, but
but
he is just a super down to earth guy, like super relaxed, very personable. Um, Kids are just nonstop screaming his name.
yep.
Steph, 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 sign, sign, sign. And I could see that probably being incredibly annoying. It's almost just annoying to
Hear it.
be around because you can't move anywhere without someone screaming. But he's pretty cool. Like he goes over, signs autographs, talks to people, makes jokes, takes selfies and photos. Like, and then he goes out and I watched him for 9 holes. Um, he probably would have shot par.
Not bad
I
on
mean,
a PGA level.
he lost a golf ball off the first tee just because he hit it too far through, and I don't think he thought that he could get it down that far. Took a drop, hit it to 20 feet, made the putt.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then from there, I don't think he really missed any like greens. He doesn't hit bad shots.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with all that going on, to be able to still like lock in on a PGA Tour ready setup, he played a tee up, but still, I was just overall very impressed with Steph Curry's golf game. It was obviously pretty cool just being around and watching him play. Um, One of those generational type athletes, probably one of the
Yeah.
most famous athletes in the world right now. So just cool seeing him out there with the people playing some golf at an incredibly difficult track with really thick rough, and he navigated it well for 9 holes. I don't know how he went on from there, but yeah, he
Yeah.
held it down. He's a legitimate plus handicap. He's not like, oh, he's a 7, but it's Steph, so we'll say
Yeah.
he's good. No, he would probably wax me.
It makes sense though. I mean, you think about a guy who is, arguably one of the best shooters that the NBA's ever seen, and to think that he has the ability to put that repeatable, motion on a
Hmm.
shot, a basketball shot, that he would be able to translate that skill, that God-given ability, to the golf game, which requires that. It's required repeated being able to repeat that swing. And if
Hmm.
in the offseason he puts in some work and all that, it makes sense where if he can do that with shooting a basketball, he can probably just translate that same muscle memory, that same muscle control, all that to a golf swing. And it makes sense that he's that good of a player and can hit it. I mean, he's strong, he's lengthy. I mean, everything about him as an athlete just kind of fits, a pretty good golf swing. So I'm not shocked that he's as good as he is.
There should be some sort of show by like I don't know ESPN or Pros vs. Joes, whatever. Like ESPN the Ocho. They
Yeah,
should they
true.
should do a show, have Steph on, and it's like, all right, let's try to find a sport or a game that Steph's bad at.
Yeah, like archery. Let's try to see how he does in archery.
Yeah, let's just try everything until we figure out something where it's like, nope, Steph ain't got it. But
I bet he would be
okay,
better. I bet he'd be better than average in almost anything if you gave him enough
yeah,
time to learn it. Like if you're like, hey, go through the javelin. I bet if you gave him a little time, he could figure out. If and he had a little coaching and all that, he'd figure it out, and I think he would be very good at it.
yeah. He's not very good at winning the NBA
Oh,
Finals in 2023, though.
ooh,
Got
ouch,
him. Okay.
ouch.
Anyway, anyway, just real quick, there wasn't like a ton of changes going on. Obviously, it's designated event, 20 mil on the line, impossible course. A lot of these guys had their bags already set up for a similar style course with Oak Hill. Um, so, you know, fairway woods and pretty similar wedge bounces. So not a lot of changes, just like in general on that front. But we had some action from Adam Scott
Not a shocker.
again,
Not a shocker.
again. So I took a look in his bag. I got some in-hand photos of the new Strixon ZX driving iron. It's 3 iron, 20 degrees, and it now has an X100 in it.
Okay.
I think he was experimenting around with different shafts. Shocker.
Yeah.
He's been doing that with all of his irons, but he seems to be settled in with the new ZX MK2 driving iron with the X100. He also finally changed into the irons that we discussed at the Players,
Yeah.
the Mura AS1 retail versions with um, the red inscription on the back and the Mura logo on the sole.
Yeah.
Finally, actually threw those irons into the bag, which I thought was ironic because it all started here at the Memorial last year when he debuted Demura custom prototypes
Yep.
that just had his logo on it. He sent us into a frenzy, blew the internet up, and kind of in a way started like reignited the fuel for tour players going to custom prototypes, then bringing them to retail. Kind
Yeah.
of just solidified that tactic. So it all came full circle. Threw in the retail irons. Sure, they're already sold out. So I guess good luck if you're in the market for
Yeah.
them.
You wanted set, too bad. They're gone.
Yeah, I don't know how to help you there. And then he also traded out the Forwood for the Burner Mini.
Yeah.
And so I actually got some launch monitor feedback from the testing session from TaylorMade. They shared it with golf3rex.com. Luckily, thank you to TaylorMade so we could see these numbers. So his Stealth 2 Plus driver,
Okay.
it's a 9-degree head, plays it at 10 degrees. Fuji TR Blue 7X shaft, 45.18 inches. He goes with 19-gram weight back, 15-gram weight front at
Wow.
D3.5.
Okay.
So his driver launches on average 11.5 degrees, 2,400 spin, 305 carry,
Whew.
181 ball speed.
That's crazy. That seems a little high, but he
Yay!
does move it.
Adam Scott. He's
That's
old.
that's
He's
moving it.
old now. He still moves it with these young kids, man. So with the burner, we also have the numbers from the burner, and I think me and you definitely, but all of us who are interested in the burner have been dying to see some tour numbers. I
Yeah.
think I have been. So the burner, he has the 13.5 degree version. There's also an 11.5 degree version. He's going 13.5. Remember, this is the club he's kind of using as his forward
Yep.
replacement. Not that it's meant to go the same distance, but you know, that's the gap in the bag that he's filling. So the burner mini launches at 11 degrees, which is interesting because that is lower than what they reported for the driver.
Yeah. A little bit.
And I'm
What's been?
assuming he was hitting this off a tee, but anyway, it spins more as
Yep.
expected, 2,800, 282 carry. So we're looking at 305 carry with the driver versus 282 carry. That is, I think, 23. I get unsure with my math.
Yeah.
Jordan, 23 yard difference. That's more than I was expecting. I thought it would be more like 16.
Okay.
Does that
Um,
surprise you?
the only thing, not really. I mean, I'm willing to bet his forward was probably similar, if not maybe even a touch shorter than the Burner Mini. The one interesting thing though is he plays it at 44 inches. That's kind of interesting. They plays it at
Oh,
44
yeah, I didn't
inches.
say that. 44 inches, yeah.
That's
That's
long.
longer than you thought it would be? Yeah,
Yeah, I thought it
me
would be
too.
like a 43 or something like that. Um,
Yep,
but no, I mean,
same.
I'm not really that shocked. I mean, it's probably one of those things where he wants kind of that lower penetrating ball flight. It's got a little spin, so he can kind of control it, maybe work it a little bit. Um, so no, I'm not terribly shocked that it's that much different. And even those are averages, so maybe if he needs to step on a little bit, he can get it to 290. And same thing with the driver. Maybe he plays a little choke down cut, and he can hit that to three. Instead of 305 carry, he can play like 290 or 300. He could probably work that gap pretty easily, just by shot shape and things like that. So not crazy, but it is pretty interesting to see, ball speed at that length and all that stuff. Ball speed. I thought the ball speed would be closer, to be honest. I thought you'd see maybe a little higher ball speed out of the burner because I thought the thing went like crazy. But
Did we say
it's
the ball speed? Ball speed 173. So
73.
181
Yeah.
driver, 173 mini driver. Now, when I just look at these, like if I put my fitting hat on or my hat where I'm just analyzing, like, do these two clubs make sense together in the bag? Does it provide enough difference? I would say definitely yes. Like, this is more different than I thought
Yeah.
it would be for me going in. So as a fitter, I would look at it and be like, listen, if you like the mini, you're comfortable hitting it,
Then
like it fits. So
yeah.
yeah, if you want to replace the forward with that, if you're thinking that you're going to use the forward pretty much mostly as a off the tee club and then an emergency on the long par five, Like this definitely works for that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I mean, the only thing is
pretty
like,
interesting. We got to see all of that. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, no. The only thing with the mini is like, yeah, how does he hit? It would be more interesting to see forward versus burner mini off the deck. Like, what's the difference
Right.
there? You know, because I
That's
wonder how
that's the
that's.
real number that we need to look
Yeah,
at. And if we're not going to see Adam Scott's numbers, me and you are going to have to do it and share
have to
them
get
because the
ourselves a
people
mini.
need to know. I still don't have one yet, so I'm working
I
on that.
I don't have one right now either. I brought it into the office and I don't have it either. So the other people wanted to try it, had high demand.
Hmm. Uh-huh. I
So
can imagine. I can imagine. Um, okay, so that was the Adam Scott reality show for the week. I pretty much only have one other topic here.
all right.
Um, Obviously, Titleist just launched its new T-Series irons. So we had T100,
Yep.
T150, which is new.
Yep.
I think it's new.
It
We'll
is.
get into that
Oh,
in a second. Well, is it a different name for the 100S? That's my thought.
yeah. I
Did
think
they
so
just
too.
make it a new head? To me, the top line looks a little bit thicker and it just looks like a slightly different design. But I could be wrong because Titleist isn't talking about it yet.
Nope.
And none of the tour players who switched this week, of which there were 13, there's
Wow.
a lot more than I thought.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so 13 players put at least one T Series. 6 players changed the whole set, 13 players total. None of them that I saw um, switching went into the 150. There were some 200s at the top of the bag, 100s for either the whole set or a mixed set. Um, I don't think anyone. Okay, so sorry, I got I got distracted. A 100, a 150, T200, T350, which is also new.
Yep.
I don't know if it's different or
Yeah, it's
just a new name, but there's a 350, and then they also went with the U505, the new one. I
yep.
don't think anyone put it in play just yet, but each of these had a chrome version and a black version right at the tour launch, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
What's your takeaway from looking at the photos? I have some minimal feedback from PGA Tour players, which I will talk about, but just like just from scrolling through the Golf WRX forums, which is where you could find all the photos. What's your
Yeah.
takeaway?
Yeah. I mean, it's Titleist. They refined. They didn't go crazy, and they shouldn't have because the T series, T100, 200, all that did exceptionally well. The previous version. So please don't break what worked, and that's something Titleist is very good at. Yeah, the T100 really classic. It looks very very similar. The bottom muscle portion looks taller than the, and again photos until you get them in hand, but it looks a
Hmm.
little larger. And I don't know if maybe they did that to utilize some type of movement of tungsten or something in there, because we know the previous version had a good amount of tungsten in it. So that one looks very similar. You're right. The cavity on it is very shallow. The top cavity. There's not a whole lot of depth to it there, but it's super clean looking. And I agree with you. The 150, it's got definitely has like a deeper cavity, and it still has a little slot. You can see where they've milled out the little slot behind the face. More than likely on just probably 3 through 7 or something like that, 3 through 6. I hope personally, I'm hoping, and again with you, I don't know anything other than seeing photos. I'm hoping the 150 is like a T100S on a little bit of steroids. I want to see a little more distance out of it,
That's
and
what I want.
just a little more heat coming from
Slightly
that
more
bat.
forgiveness.
Yeah, and a little more distance. Just
Yeah.
dial it up a touch. I'm hoping
Yep.
that's what that is. And you're right, though. Definitely a deeper cavity in there, which makes me think maybe we're getting something a little different other than just slightly stronger lofts and just a little bit of a milled cavity out of it. The 200s, I think, look awesome, especially at a dress. It looks like the sole is still going to be pretty wide. I was hoping they'd thin that down a touch. Looks like it's still going to be pretty wide, but even the 3 iron doesn't have a whole lot of offset. It looks really good
I
from
was
a
gonna say
dress.
I think they took down some offset on the
Yeah,
200 because I do. Obviously, we did our what's in the bag recently.
yeah,
The 4 iron is an option that I go with, and these 4 irons, the T200s, I looked down at them and I was like, "There's less offset on this, and I like this better."
yep, yeah.
So
The 200s could be really, really big next year if these are
Yeah.
slightly slimmed down, and they look to be.
Yeah.
And I know the Golf the Beer Xers, the first thing is like, is the badge plastic? It probably is. I think it looks really good though. It looks really clean. It kind of has that like bladish look. It almost has like an old concept look in a way.
It does. It
Um,
does.
but I like,
Especially the black. The black version looks awesome.
yeah, they do. I mean, the black version, all of them look really good.
Someone
Uh,
said it looks like a Vapor Fly Pro, a
oh,
Nike, and I can't unsee it, and it makes me like it even more.
yeah,
So shout
but
out
it's
whoever said that. You
but
got me fired up.
the 200 looks really good. A little longer heel to toe, but like I think there's that less offset. The top line actually looks, the way they beveled it looks like it's pretty thin, so which is
Hmm.
nice. And then 350, it'll be interesting to see. It looks like it's definitely going to be a little chunkier. It's going to be that easier to hit option. You're not going to see it much on tour. That's going to be more when we hit retail to see what that going on with that. And honestly, I'm excited to see the U505. The current, what is it? Is it the current 505 or not the 505? What is it? The 510? What's the current one that's out right now? I can't remember the name. The U something. That
I thought
one's,
it was the 505.
yeah. The
Or
older
is it
was,
515? Hold on.
yeah. I know it's.
We sound dumb right now.
I know it's so bad that we can't remember stuff like this.
The
Um,
505 is now so fresh in my brain,
yeah,
and the design of the back is like a little bit different.
yeah,
I really like what they did with that design on the back, like just the that back badging.
and
And just while I'm talking,
yeah.
the T100 too, and the 150, the T100 and the 150. I love where they put the Titleist,
Oh
and that's
yeah,
what I
on
talked.
the
I talked to
back.
Ben Taylor. I don't know if everyone knows exactly who Ben Taylor is, but he's a PGA Tour player in the field. Used to play T100s. That's what he said. He was like, "I'm really fired up about the
It's big
changes they made cosmetically." Yeah, he was like, "I love the classic Titleist script. It was really small on the bottom. They moved it center and
and made it.
bigger." And it does look, it looks a lot flyer. Like it looks cool. So cosmetically, I think they did a great job with the lineup. But go ahead. I
Yeah.
interrupted you.
Well,
I'm
no,
sorry for
the
it.
only thing with the U505, I didn't notice that we had one at address. I hope they press some of the offset out of it. Like I hit a 3 at 20 degree, and I don't mind seeing the back of the club at address. Like that's fine. It's a utility iron. I know some people do, and I get that. I think this one you're still going to see it the way it kind of scoops out. I think you're still going to see it.
You see it, yeah.
But the other one just had so much offset, even at the 20-degree model, and I was like, man, I never liked the look of it. And for me, I mean, a 20-degree driving iron is just not for my game. But I just never liked the look. I'm hoping this one's maybe just slimmed down a touch and has a little less offset to it. And I think it'll do really, really well because I think it performed great. The current 505. I think if they can make some cosmetic changes to this one and even keep the performance the same, I think a lot of people will switch over.
Yeah, so most of the tour feedback that I heard was just that people absolutely love the last iteration of T-Series irons.
Yep.
The T100s are just like some of the best irons released in the last decade. That's like how good those last T100s were. They're extremely popular on tour
Yeah.
with Titleist staffers and non-staffers. But we saw a lot of switches, and pretty much to a man, they were like the transition was really easy because they're very similar. There were cosmetic improvements, slight difference in feel. A couple guys said they felt slightly firmer.
Hmm.
Now
Okay.
take that for whatever you take it. Maybe to them it's like, oh, it feels more solid rather than, firm to some people might insinuate clicky, but I don't think that's what they were
Yeah.
saying. I think they were just saying it feels more solid. Um, but very similar, they were all saying just, yeah, really easy transition. Like the hardest work that they had to put in was deciding, where am I going to cut off the T200 from the T100, or am I just going with the full T100 set? Like, they had to hit some of these clubs just to figure it out. Um, like the Ben Taylor, he was saying, yeah, I mean, I hit a couple shots and they're like going in the bag right away.
Yeah.
It's like, why wouldn't they? They're new versions of irons that aren't awesome.
Yeah.
They feel slightly better to him, and he really likes the cosmetics, which is kind of where I was coming from with the cosmetics. It's like, as a former T100 iron user myself, I know how good the iron
Yeah.
heads are and how much I like them. So you make a couple small cosmetic improvements, change up the feel a little bit, and then allow me to dial in a mixed set, throw in like a 150. I don't know what it does yet. I don't know what the
Yeah.
150 is, but I like that it seems to be a slightly larger option. So maybe if I want to go like T100 up to the 8 iron, 157 and 6, and then by the 5 iron, I go to the T200. You know,
Yeah.
it seems there's just more opportunity for mixed set. Looks like they took out some offset with the T200, makes the pros happy, makes people like us happy. Um, you know, the offset gatekeepers of the world
That's
who just
right.
bash.
Yeah.
Anytime you see any sort of offset, you get pissed off. It looks like they addressed some of that. Um, so yeah, that was the Titleist Iron launch. Just like kind of easy sailing for a lot of these guys. I mean, the Spieths and JTs didn't switch, so
Yeah, but
I don't
they
know exactly what that means, but that doesn't surprise me.
no.
There are two guys that don't switch into new stuff a lot unless you're talking JT with the putter. But you
Yeah.
know,
And JT's got his own iron.
those two don't surprise me. They will switch, I'm sure, eventually. You know, that's probably more of like a September October where they're legitimately working these into the bag. But ton of Titleist staffers switched.
Nice. Yeah. No, that's the only downside to the T200 is it didn't continue the same finish on the 200 as the 100. The only downside with comboing it up that it's more chrome than satin. So that's the
That's a
only.
bag appeal thing to me.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, but some people that plays a role. So that's the only downside to the T200 that I wish they might have changed up is made the finish consistent. So when you did build a combo set, you'd have the same finish throughout. Because some people that will, they have a problem with that. Not me. I don't
Fair
care.
enough. Well, I'm going to leave you with one closing remark and then we're going to get out of here.
All right.
Don't be a JB Holmes this morning or
Oh boy.
this weekend.
Yeah.
Don't be a JB. Sign up under a different name and boost the handicap. I actually don't think that's how the story went down. He clarified it. Um, it was a 6-man scramble event. He was entered in under John Bradley, which is what JB stands for.
Oh
It really
yeah.
sounds like his friends just signed him up under that,
Yeah.
and some of the members were not like
Yeah. Too
incredibly
keen.
happy about that. But I don't think JB Holmes himself had any sort of like
Yeah.
ill
Wrongdoing.
will. He's
Yeah.
just really good at golf. Someone hit him up to play a scramble and he went and torched it.
Yeah. I
Like
say
that's not
killed him.
shocking. I think that's like my understanding of the situation. But either way, if I'm just saying, in general, this isn't a shot at JB. If you're gonna go out and shoot 67, don't sign up as
uh,
a 8.8 handicap. We don't support sandbagging
no.
around here. That's my final word. That's all I got. So that's gonna wrap up this week's Two Guys Talking Golf from the Memorial. Next week we have the RBC Canadian Open.
Yep.
I will not be in attendance. I'm not going north of the border.
No.
Next time I'll be out there is the U.S. Open at Los Angeles Country
Ooh.
Club. I'm
Fired
fired
up.
up.
Yeah.
Yep, never been there, and it's the U.S. Open. Got to get jacked up for the U.S. Open.
Heck yeah.
So we'll have some live reporting from on site there. I don't know what we're gonna do next week because Greg's not out there either. So maybe we'll do like questions from fans or something
Yeah.
a little bit different.
Not a bad idea.
Maybe some trivia. I know we talked about that a little bit. Who
Yeah.
knows? We're
We'll
gonna do
figure something
something a
out.
little bit different next week. Then we'll get back to it, firing at the U.S. Open. So
All right, man.
it's
I
always a
love it.
pleasure, Knudsen. That was Two Guys Talking Golf from Jack's Place. We'll see you next week in some capacity, not from Canada. See you guys next week. Peace.